Okay, guys, so let's coming back to the session. So I think so far we created with the UI project. So with the UI project, so we displayed index view. So this session I'm going to cover create, edit, and delete views. How you want to create the data into the servers table, and also to update the servers information and deleting the servers. So now let's come back to this serverinfo.ui project and go to the server controller. So I think we covered pretty much with the index and how to display the views. Now I think I'm going to, since we already have a display, let's go back to the edit and then to create a edit view. So let's go to view, and you do not have the view, and then click add view and then click edit since it is an edit, and select the template is edit and go to the server model and click add. So pretty much the edit layout is created with all the information. So where you could see here, since you are not changing any server ID, so I would suggest you can give the property which is a read only equal to read only, so that you don't need to modify this. This is the index ID, which is primary key and primary key on the table, so we don't want to touch that. And the rest of the information you can change, and finally it submits, and then it goes to that edit method, post method. So now let's go back and use the using statement, server info dot model, and then take out this reference, and then now you could see the server model class. Go back to the server controller, which is MVC controller, and go to the edit. Since you are getting the edit, so you need to get the edit form with calling the ID, which is server ID. So while making this action, so you have to go to the index and see like what is the parameter you are passing for the edit action. So I think you need a parameter which is a server ID, and the server ID which you are taking from server ID from the item object. So that way, since this is in the for loop, so each record has the server ID which is available on the edit. Now click on save and go to here. So basically it comes here with the server ID action. So once you get this action, so for now, I want to copy the same, how the index is displaying. Let's copy the same thing. But since this is a single object, so I want to do some modifications, which is server model. Is a server equal to null. Let's declare the server. And since this is getting the servers, let's go back to the web API controller, how the single server information that we are getting. So that is still the servers and the servers, but passing the server ID as a parameters. So for the servers, you can pass the server ID, which is equals to plus server ID. So now this is covered with the await. So let's use the async the same way how we did for index. For the index, asynchronous task and await. The same thing we want to see that for. And since it is a single object, let's use the server, and you don't need IEnumerable since it is a single object. So now it is the servers, and then let's take the server and click here so that it displays when you click on the edit in the index page, where it comes into calling this, and it displays the server information. Let's go back and run it. So very first time it takes a bit since we have to load the web API and UI. So now guess it is calling the web API call. So now you got the data, and then when you click edit, so when you hover it, so you could see in the bottom of the left side of the screen, so where edit, so you can see the entire routing URL, so which is a server ID. Click on here, it takes you to the server ID 3, and then we are pulling the data for getting the data for server ID, which is one single server object. And now if you hover over, and you could see, so you are retrieving the single server object, and then click F5. So now in the edit view, where you could see the server information is available for that particular the selected server. So now you can modify the changes here and then click save. So basically it takes you to um, the post method. So for now, bit a second, I want to stop this and let's write the code for the edit post method. So since we are passing the whole server object, so let's make a server model, which is a server object. And since this is a post method, I would say let's use first I want to create a string. We want to convert the server object into a string content. So that way, all you are passing the server C# object, .NET object into the JSON object, which is content equal to a new string content JSON convert dot. So earlier we did the serial deserialized object. Now you have to make it as a serialized object, because when the data is coming from web API, we are deserializing. And then when you are passing to the web API from the UI, the server is a UI server object. So you have to make it as a serialized object. So that way it's passing as a string content, which is a HTTP string content. And server, the content should be encoding, which is encoding. So encoding, which is control dot using the system dot text encoding dot UTF-8 format, where you can use this. And then media type is application/JSON. So we're passing as a media type JSON object. And then let's use the same where client equal to new HTTP client, because we have to post the data. Posting data HTTP client, and client dot base address equal to new URI of URL plus. Since you're passing, so let's go back to the editing the data. So we are using the routing is update. So let's use the update and comma. So that is the new, I think not for the URL. So let's use the new URI and client dot base address. So let's use the HTTP response message response client dot post async, because you have to post the data, and then use the URL plus update, comma, and then content. You're passing the HTTP content. Let's use the await. And when you're using the await, let's make it as a task, which is a synchronous call. Make it as an asynchronous call. And then if response dot is status code and where result equal to response dot content dot read as a string. I think this code is pretty much you're following the same way like how we did for the get index and editing, and most of the times we have to reusing the same code. Dot result. And so let's see the update is what kind of a return object it is. So since it is an integer, let's declare it is an integer. Int update equal to 0. If it is updated, let's make it as an update. JSON convert dot deserialize object of since this is an integer, let's make it as an integer, and then result. So you're converting the result object into the integer. So if update equal to 1, so then now you have to use, it goes to the, once it is successfully updated, it goes to the index. You are redirecting to the index. If not, let's make this is a view which stays around. But I'll give the messages in the view, the screen, so where you could see the update is done successfully. But for now, I want to use the view so that it stays onto the edit view itself. But if it is successful, it goes into the index. So then it updates the information to the index page. So now you could see we are calling the update and making update is 1, and then we are passing it. Now let's go back and run it again. Okay, now click on edit, and then it comes into the edit get window. So now we are displaying the data, and then put the breakpoint in the update also, just in case you want to see whether the object is filled. Let's make the change in XYZ test and server down test, and then make it save. So now you could see all the server updated callout process and maintained by. So these two we updated and it comes into here. Now we are converting into the content, which is a HTTP content, and then now we are passing into update. So now it is succeeded. It calls the web API update method, and the result, which is 1, and then now you could see this is going back to the index screen with updated value. So this is pretty much edit. Now I want to create a create view. So right now we do not have any views for the create. So let's make one for create. I think it's very similar to the edit how we are doing. Let's go back. Since it's a create, you need only the empty view. For now, let's add the view and then create. Let's make it as a template is create, and the server model. Now add it. So first we want to display as a empty template edit view, create view, and then now what you need is you have to use the create post method. You have to pass the server object and then creating the new. So for now, I want to copy the same code where it is in the edit. So I want to copy and paste it into the create. Let's make even asynchronous call. So which is create, and then, sorry, I copied the different one, but this is the server object that we are passing. And I think we should copy this one. If it's copied. So now let's make it as in a create, and let's see whether what is the create return object, whether it is an integer or a boolean. Let's go back to the server control in the web API. The create is also an integer return, so the routing is create. Let's go back, so the routing is create, and the create is integer value. So let's use, once it is created, it's updated into here. Now let's go back and run the program again. Keep it in mind, so the create we are passing only the empty view because it's only the empty layout is required. It is not like edit, because the edit is required the record, but for create you do not need since it is a new record. Okay, now this is a create new, and when you click on it, so there is some issue with the model does not exist in the server info. Let's go back. I don't want to stop the debugger since it is CSHTML. You can usually change this here. I think we forgot to add the using statement, using server info dot model and server info. Now control F5, refresh the page. So now it is coming here. All you need is a server one. You can try adding values and XYZ, sorry, ABC, and 2019. Let's give the, for now I will change these into the date time into the later sessions. For now I am using just typing the values, and server ID is not required, but if you can create, so but still it is asking the server ID since we have a validations. So server ID may not required. So for now, what I will do is in this group of the server ID label, so I'm commenting out and then click and save the code CSHTML and go to here and then do the control F5. I think you have to enter it back again. Since we already have the ID, so later session, so I want to change the server types, which is from the server type table, OS type table, and contact table. For now, I was entering the IDs for now. And then select it and then create. So now it comes into the create where all the data is available and it is converting it to the HTTP content and calling the web API create. So now it is successfully created. So the create is one, then make it as F5. So now you'd see the pretty much the record is created. Right now the second record we added. Okay, now let's go back and use the delete. So right now we do not have any delete. So now go back to this and then stop. So for the delete also, you need you have to select the record delete and then add a view. Since you do not have a view, then delete and select the server model, then click on add. So now you got the delete object here. Now let's go back to the server controller, which is MVC controller. For now, the delete, the same thing as edit. Let's copy the edit server ID. The same thing for delete, and also the asynchronous. Okay, so servers and the server ID, and make it as a server ID. So since the routing that we changed to the server ID, let's go back to the index where you have to use the server ID, same for delete. Now save it and then go back to the server controller. So now it displays the view which is a server. It gets the server ID, whatever the record that you want to delete, and then make it as here. And also I want to write the post method so that we can test both at a time. So let's make this is a server model. Since we are using the view has a server model, go to this view. So this is a server model. I think we have to add this again. The rate using server info dot model. So save it and then go back here, server model. Let's copy the same code where either it is in the create post or edit post. So this is a delete, and copy the delete here, and let's make the routing is delete. And for now, wait a second, I want to see the delete. What is the return types that we used? The delete we used the boolean, so, and then passing the server ID. So since we are only passing not the whole object, we are passing is just only passing the server ID. Just give the server ID here itself, and server dot server ID. And you don't need the whole object and the string content, just comment out. And let's take the asynchronous result. So now delete server ID HTTP content. Okay, so since this is a URL, whole URL you have to passing as, and then content is null. We are not passing any content except the server ID. So let's go back and see the server is a boolean value. Let's make this is a boolean and false. If it is true, then it redirects into the index page. Okay, we wrote the delete, retrieving the single value and then deleting. Let's now run it. Okay. Okay, so now the delete, when you hover it, you could see the bottom left corner of the screen. So where you could see the routing server delete server ID. Click on here. It takes into the server ID object. And then let's make the delete. Okay, so this is deleted from the database also. Let's go back to the database and check it. So you have only one record. So pretty much I covered create, edit, and delete. And if you want, you can even write it into the details, but for now, I'm just leaving it out. So if you want to add another record, you can add. So, and 1, 2, 2, and just process 1. Let's make it as a 2. And then create, continue. So now it is created. And if you want to edit, you can edit ABC and then save. Now it is saved. And if you want to delete, and you can delete. So or back to list, and it goes to the back to list. So pretty much I covered the create, edit, and delete. In the next session, I was gonna cover the bootstrap, which is a styling, and that way you get like a good styles and applying into the pages so that it looks neat and everything. So I will cover the next session with bootstrap. And thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day, and hopefully you understand these sessions better. Thank you. Bye.